Version 3 of Copilot is the most advanced version by far that we have created. So this is a major leap forward, and you will see why. So let's say I have an epic. I want to take this epic whose aim is to improve customer experience for my project management system. And let's say that's my epic, and I want to come up with features for this epic. Now, I'm going to use Elicit to ask it to recommend features and then get me the titles and descriptions for it. So I'll click Generate. It will use GPT-4 Mini for this. It comes up with some recommendations on how to improve customer experience. If you need more, click on the See More button. In previous versions of Copilot, you had to choose a drop-down menu to specify how many results you wanted. But now, you can keep asking for more and more and more and eventually select the ones that are most applicable for what you want to get done. When generating these features, I'd actually given it custom instructions text which say, identify features that are needed by blind users. So if I'm building a system that needs to support people with no sight or poor sight, then custom instructions can be used to fine-tune the results for those stakeholders. Now I'm going to get rid of the custom instructions, and I'm going to generate the results without taking them into account. And so now it doesn't have any specific instruction. Now it's going to give me a different result set so you can fine-tune the recommendations that the system provides. Okay, so let's say I want to have a streamlined user onboarding process. I need a feedback mechanism. I need various reports and so on and so forth. I can even select all the options if I like. But here I'm choosing 3. I'll go ahead and publish this. It will create the work items and link them to the epic. So now if I go to this work item, there are a couple of new things in Copilot V3 compared to V2. Now you can click on any of the work items and drill down into them to see the details. You can also click on the work items that we just published to look at the details. In fact, you can even update these, and that will be reflected back here. However, if you click the hyperlink, then you'll drill down. It will take you to the next level. So I can say that for this feature, I want to define user stories. It will go and generate your user stories for that feature. So previously, you remember you had to get out, select something else, and come back in. So it's just saved you a bunch of clicks and become much more efficient. And again, you can do more and more, and then you can continue to select the options that you want. Copilot will go get them. In this case, I'm asking it for the description, acceptance criteria, pseudocode, and test script steps. Okay, so it's generated all of those things. I can go ahead and create these as work items. And again, when the work items are created, you would see the IDs as their titles are hyperlinked. And then I can again drill down into the user story and generate my test cases. So now it's going to generate my test cases with all the test steps. You can ask for more by clicking Select All. It will go get all the test steps for each of these test cases. And there you are. By giving Copilot the right context, the amount of productivity increases dramatically. And then you can fine-tune it for your specific needs. So it gives you a great starting point. Plus you spot gaps it would take too long to find manually. Let's go in and create these as test case work items. These are my test cases now published. And now let's select another user story and have it generate test cases for that. So this breadcrumb is really useful to go back and forth and flesh out your information. The other thing you can do is go to the feature and say, you know what? I don't want test cases here. What I want for the feature is I want integration test case because this feature has many user stories. And in that user story, I want to consider the content of all the user stories underneath that feature and to come up with integration test cases. And so this is the new feature we've just introduced for integration test cases. Then we'll come up with integration test cases and you can publish those. And if I drill down into this and I go, you know what I need? I need user stories here. Okay, so I want user stories. If there are already user stories defined for this feature, then those user stories would not be repeated again. So in V2, it could repeat things. In V3, it is much more aware, and it does not repeat anything you have. So when you want to identify what are the gaps, this is how you would do it. Okay, now run it. And it will tell you new stuff that you're missing. Whenever you're asking it to recommend things as before, you can give it instructions. You can give it instructions in this case for the titles you want and what details you want. You can give it specific instructions, but you can also tell it to be more creative or be more precise. You can choose between short responses or long responses, or you can select which AI service you want to use. The service is configurable by your organization, whether you want to use only Azure OpenAI services or OpenAI service directly. Or what you can also do with V3 is you can define your own LLM. Here is why. Many of our clients have come to us and said we have configured our own LLM with Microsoft, and we would like to use our own LLM. This is because they have certain SLA terms from Microsoft and or whatever else they've configured. So V3 will give you the ability to define and use your own LLMs, which you can select from here. And in your license of Copilot4DevOps Plus, you can also choose which model you want to use within the LLM, whether it's provided by modern requirements or it's provided by yourselves. Our recommendation is to use GPT-4o Mini because Mini is more efficient in terms of token usage. It's also almost as good as 4o and in some cases even better. Generally, 4o will give you higher quality results, but it also consumes more tokens. Okay, so that's Elicit. By the way, you can create any work item type you choose from here. Whether you want to create risk mitigations, tasks for your projects, bugs, test case integrations, features, custom work items, and a lot more. Next, we go to Analyze. So when we analyze, the AI offers some analysis that helps you better understand the quality of your work items. Here, I can choose the model and the method of analysis. So previously, Copilot only offered the 6C method, which is a very good model. But what if you want to use the Invest model, or the SWAT model, or Pablo? You can choose the model you want. You can click on Generate, and it will generate your 6C quality analysis. The AI is checking if the work item is concise, complete, consistent, correct, or concrete. And in the event that it gives you a low score, you should read some suggestions as to what you want to do. It'll tell you why it rated the work item the way it did. So in concrete, it tells us that the fact that we're using phrases like implementing solutions are not specific enough. So we need to come up with language that defines specific actions and that are measurable. In completeness, we want to provide metrics. So it's giving us suggestions of how to make it better. And this particular feature got 67%. And here's the summary of the recommendation. Okay, now over here, you can copy this into memory and then paste it somewhere and share it with other people as you need to. So that's that. And of course, we should take a look at the other analysis models. If you wanted to do an invest model, then he'll come up with different parameters. So it's looking at, is the requirement independent? Is it negotiable? Is it valuable? Is it estimatable? Is it small? So again, it's using a different model to do this analysis. And we implemented this because our clients came to us and they said that they used different models. And although it's got a similar score in this model as well, but it is looking at things in a different way. So this is going to be really helpful, especially with V3, now that you have the ability to change the model of analysis. If you go in here, you will see there's a Learn More link there. If you click on this, it'll open up a panel with a video that shows you how to use Elicit. For every Copilot feature, we have a Learn More and section with an explanatory video with examples and step-by-step instructions. Although the system is pretty simple, but sometimes it's good to have something to look at for a couple of minutes and say, aha, I get it. This leads me to a brand new function for V3, Impact Assessment. So in Impact Assessment, we will going to use a different example. We will use a CRM software as an example. So I've got a requirement written for a CRM. I'm going to do an impact assessment where I'm going to start the impact assessment with the work item that was already selected, which was an epic. Then, I'm going to tell it what change I want to do. The prompt is that the user notification should be sent within 3 seconds. Previously, the user notification time was 5 seconds. And to define what you want to change, you identify one or multiple starting points for the analysis and you tell it to analyze. So it'll go and come back and tell you how big the impact is. So for this epic, it's a 4 out of 5 impact in magnitude. It's giving you the analysis over here and what you might want to do. And then you can drill down into it and then it'll come to the next level. Okay, so this way, you can take a large body of knowledge, have Copilot4DevOps Plus go through it, and identify what are the areas that are going to be impacted. Another example of this could be I could select multiple work items and then invoke Copilot to do an impact assessment on all of these work items. I'll give you the same message and have it do the analysis at the bottom left. So I don't go top down from epics, feature, user story. What it did was it identified in this case that there is one work item. That is a 5 out of 5 impacts because it was within 5 seconds before. Now it's 3 seconds. It identified exactly the area that would be impacted by the change. Right now, most people will perform impact analysis one way or the other. And in this case, what I need to do is I need to update the implementation of this user story. I will need to rerun or update the test case so that now I'm testing for a delay of 3 seconds or less. So impact assessment is a very powerful tool. Its implication is massive because otherwise it's too long. And by the way, this is not doing text search. It's actually doing a semantic analysis on what do things mean and then determines what needs to be done. Alright, so let's go back here. Let's take a look at Q&A Assistant. Okay, so let's say I'm doing requirements. I want to look at whether my application security is compliant to ISO 9001 rules. I want to ask it, what are the standards of ISO 9001 that I should be creating requirements for my application security? So I just give it a title there, a sentence or a phrase as a prompt. It'll come up with a series of questions that you should ask yourself. And so, for example, I need to patch my system. And when you do that, it will come up with an explanation of the question, a detailed answer, and a summary of the answer. And then you can go and create your work item. So let's say I'm going to create a user story. Now, based on this, it will give me this work item which shows how we want to ensure that we are doing timely patch deployment, etc. Here's my description of it. And here's the question I was answering to help me create this requirement, which provides context to you. So this is another type of elicitation that helps you think through the problem and then helps you drive the answer. Next, let's go to dynamic prompt. So dynamic prompt is an amazingly powerful, open-ended tool. I've created an example here. So what can we do here? So in dynamic prompt, I'm saying that in my CRM system, I support the following capabilities as listed in query 1. So now I've given it a query there. I'm prompting the AI by telling it that my client wants a system with certain requirements, which I've listed below. I want it to perform a gap analysis for me between my system capability and what the client wants. And then I go and click on Generate. The AI will now perform the gap analysis and show us what the client requirements are, whether we support it, and whether anything is missing. So it is now doing a full analysis. We actually implemented this because we were working with a client of ours that had a large system with hundreds of capabilities. When people came to them with RFPs, they said, here's what we need, with a big list of things to do, and they had to do a gap analysis. So firstly, they would want to do a high-level analysis, and then if they would want to do a detailed analysis. Ordinarily, both of those take a lot of time to do. But now, they can doing those things extremely efficiently. So that's dynamic prompt. You give it content from your work items, you prompt something you want it to do, and it returns a deep analysis. Another example of dynamic prompt would be using multi-select. So I'm going to multi-selected work items. In the backend, you will see the context change to selected work item as opposed to query. So this is now looking at multiple selected work items. I'm going to give it a prompt. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm giving it a series of user stories, and I'm telling Copilot to summarize the scope of this work, which is the work items. And it's this information. And I said, give me up to 3 items that are the hardest to implement. And so now it's taking all of the user stories and other related data. It's now giving me a short summary of it. And here are the 3 things that it thinks are the hardest to implement. But what if you wanted the result in German? You can include that in the prompt. Of course, you could have also done that from choosing response language in custom instructions. Okay, that's not here. But let's go here and say generate. And so it will actually give you a summary in German. And the top 3 things are the hardest to implement in German. How wonderful is this? Imagine the things you can do with dynamic prompt. Okay. The other thing which I'll show you with multi-select is the ability to generate test cases. So you could say that given all of these user stories, generate test scripts, not test cases, in one of many frameworks. So if you're using Selenium, you can say, give me my test scripts for these user stories. Then I'm going to actually generate your test scripts for Selenium based on the details you have provided. Now what I should do is tell it to include the acceptance criteria in there as well. And it'll bring all of that together. So it'll take a moment to finish. And now you have a cumulative result of all those user stories within a Selenium framework. Similarly, you can go and say, I actually want to get pseudocode, but only in TypeScript. If you leave it pseudocode here, it will just give you your logic in plain English. But let's do TypeScript, and then we'll go and give you your TypeScript code to implement all of these user stories. So previously in V2, you could only do one work item at a time. Now you can select a whole bunch and have it create your code based on whichever language you choose, and voila. You can also transform work items into a number of other requirements management artifacts. You can gherkin language from a work item. So for example, you could say for this epic, tell me what are the gherkins that might be applicable. Of course, gherkin is a way of writing your requirements. So it basically comes up with given when, then statements. There are a lot of people that do test-driven development that write in Gherkin because that can be codified much more easily. With Copilot, you can do this at whichever level you choose. The input can be a user story, a requirement, even a test case. But you can also convert this to a use case directly from the dropdown, and it will generate the use case for you given this high-level epic. As you can see, it has your preconditions, your postconditions, actors you need, and the relevant scenario. And here's your alternate my exceptions. So really, the idea of using Copilot is to make you much more efficient so that you can do the jobs that you were meant to do, which is to understand your business needs and not be a glorified typist. It helps DevOps professionals collaborate with your stakeholders and come up with solutions that really provide value to the end users of the systems that you're developing. So it elevates the role of a business analyst, a product owner, a quality engineer, and more. This is because Copilot can take on and help you with a lot of the stuff which can be automated. but it does not know what you know about the organization. In concert with an informed professional, it can radically increase the quality of your output. And that brings me to creating a no-code prototype. Now imagine you are building an application and your boss comes and says, "Hey, I want a project management system." Okay, so you go into the no-code feature and tell it, "We need a project management system. Let's choose that." We can describe it in this prompt. And it's going to create a prototype for us without us writing a single line of code. And then I go, "Fine, let's take a look at this," and it'll ask me to choose what a project management system needs. It needs projects, tasks, teams, milestones, whatever you can say. Give me more and you'll see more. And for any one of these, you can see what are the characteristics of these, and you can fine-tune them as needed like so. And when you're done with this, you click Go Next and you'll create the app. But what if your boss said, "Hey, look, I need an event management system because we are doing a corporate event. And no, I don't want to spend the next 6 weeks trying to figure out, can I buy something out there? Can we get something going quickly?" So ordinarily, you might create a spreadsheet and use that, or you might start writing requirements for somebody to code it or select one from scratch. Or you can come to this function within Copilot to create a functioning prototype very quickly. So let's ask it to create an event management app. It will come up with a series of things. So you need events, you need venues, you need attendees, you have tickets, you have sessions, and of course we have speakers. We'll also have sponsors and so on and so forth. We need categories and features for all of these needs. And then you might go, "Fine, I like these. I fine-tune it next." At this point, Copilot will come up with the relationships. An event has one venue, but maybe it does. Or maybe an event may have many venues. Or it may even have many sessions with many speakers or just one speaker. Okay, so you define this configuration. That's it. Once you have defined this, you click on Create App. At this point, you wait for 2 minutes or maybe less. It'll create the application for you. A beautiful looking application. You don't have to drag and drop and do stuff there. Now in this case, I've added some data so that I can show you that it has a dashboard in it. It's got a beautiful dashboard with calendar, graphs, reports, and whatever else you need. So you can create your reports, you can edit your reports, you can configure them as you like, and you can aggregate things as well. You'll also have the ability to manage your events. So you've got multiple events here. So if you're going to the vintage car event, here's the summary of it. If I click on it, I'll drill down into it. We can look at the venues. There's the state field, and we can look at the guests we have. What are the tasks outstanding on this event management area? There's a history of who, what, when. You can have discussion here. You can have attachments in it. And so on and so forth. So now what you have is the ability to visualize an application. And of course, this is just version 1 of the application. You might want to fine-tune it, at which point you will go enable editing. When you do that, you will see these pencils show up. So if I go to event here, you will see these pencils are here. If I go to new event, is a pencil there. I could click on the pencil and I can start editing what I want. I can also now drag and drop and reorganize things. So you don't have to do that up front. That's the AI automation within Codeless One. It is a sister product to Model Requirements, but you can get a free version of it, so you can do your prototyping and start experimenting with it. Okay, the whole point is this is a fully functional application. Not only is it beautiful looking, it is very powerful. You can even define rules of how data behaves from a data security point of view, from a role security point of view, and so on. So the whole point is before you build it or you buy it, you should use it. So often people build it and then people use it and they find that's too late because now changing is very expensive. With Codeless 1 by Modern Requirements, you can iterate through the concept very quickly. And in 5 or 6 iterations, maybe over a week, you'll have a solution that's very close to the final tool you need. At that point, you can decide, do I deploy this application because it does everything? This has the right security and scalability. Or you'll say, no, you know what? Let's build it because we want certain capabilities that we need. With this, we conclude the masterclass of Copilot for DevOps version 3. Please check out our deep dive videos for individual features available on YouTube or on our website at copilot4devops.com/learn.